RATP Technical Working Group meeting for Monday, September 15th. Looks like it's 1:03. So thank you, everyone, again, for joining us. This is scheduled to be our last Technical Working Group meeting as part of the RATP development process. So I just want to start by thanking everyone for your ongoing participation, your feedback coming to these meetings. I believe this is our 7th meeting for this plan. So yeah, it's very much appreciated, all the time you put into all the reviews and providing feedback throughout the process. And I will also mention, just over an hour ago, I did send an email with a link to the draft of the active transportation plan. So you should have that in your email. So feel free to reach out if you didn't receive that. And just as a note for quorum, looks like we are just at quorum. So if you need to hop off or can't stay for the entire time, don't believe we'll take the full 2 hours. If you could just go ahead and let us know. But we will get started with introductions. So I will just go down the list as it appears on my screen. Hopefully I won't miss anyone. But yeah, just feel free to unmute yourself and introduce yourself. And then if I did miss anyone, we'll have an opportunity at the end to go through that introduction. So my name is Hannah Oden. I'm a planning manager here at PAG. And the next person on my list, will go with Carlos.
Hi, Carlos Suarez, Tennis Arita, Public Works.
Great, thanks for joining, Carlos. Next on my list is Chris Joannes.
Hi there, Chris Joannes, Consultant Project Manager with Kinley Horn on the RATP.
Thank you, Chris. And then Justin.
Hi, everyone, Dustin Fitzpatrick with PAG.
Great, thanks, Justin. Jennifer Hobart.
Jennifer Hobart with the ADOT Multimodal Planning Division. I'm the Regional Planning Section Manager, and I also oversee the ADOT Active Transportation and Transportation Alternatives programs.
Awesome, thank you, Jennifer. Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan Crow here with Pima County Department of Transportation.
Thanks, Jonathan. Jose Rodriguez.
Jose Rodriguez, Town of Oro Valley, Public Works.
Thanks, Jose. And we'll go to Kristen.
Hi, Kristen Valtz with Kinley Horn.
Thanks, Kristen. And Nico?
Hey, Nico Geraldo, Transportation Planner, PAG.
Well, thanks, Nico. And then Shamara Smith.
Hello, I'm Shamara Smith with Suntran.
Thanks for joining, Shamara. And then Stephen Dean.
Stephen Dean, Town of Marana, Development Services Deputy Director.
Thanks, Stephen. And we'll go over to our attendees list. Looks like we have Dion Schwartz.
Dion Schwartz, Town of Marana, Traffic Manager.
Thanks, Dion. And then Elaine Mariol. Sorry if I mispronounced your last name.
Sure, Elaine Mariol, Active Transportation Planner in Multimodal Planning Division at ADOT.
And thanks for joining, Elaine. And then looks like Davida just joined. Davida, I don't know if you have connected to audio yet, if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Davida Mueller. I'm the Director of Service Planning and Development at Suntran.
And thanks for joining, Davida. We also have our tech support and admin team who are keeping us going, making sure things run smoothly. So we have Don, Yisa, and Jesse who are joining us as well. The list was jumping around a little bit. Was there anyone that I missed? Feel free to unmute yourself if so. No? All right, well, we can move on to the second agenda item. So the in-kind form, so I'll just go ahead and read the slide. So regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you are paid with federal dollars, please let us know now. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. And at the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. time spent working on PAG RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. All right, and so we'll go ahead and move on to the third agenda item, the planning process progress. So I will go ahead and turn this over to Chris with Kimberly Horn, but we're going to go over where we're at, review the draft of the plan, and provide some additional information, be able to answer any questions. So Chris, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Just want to echo what Hannah said. We really appreciate all of the time and attention you've put into this project. I think it's resulted in a really good product, and I hope you all feel that you've been able to impact it in a positive way. So we're just really happy to be here, trying to bring it to a close. It's really exciting. It's been well over a year in process, so yeah, we're excited to bring it home. So we'll give you an update on where we are in the planning process. A good amount of the presentation is on the RATP document itself. The only piece of that you all haven't seen so far is our planning level cost estimation. And so we'll walk through that briefly. Then Kristen will take us through a tour of the document. Not expecting you to give any comments on that yet, since you just got it about an hour ago. But as you're going through and doing your review, we want to orient you to what's included in each of the sections in the document. So that's what that agenda item is about. We're also going to talk through, we're just launching our third and final round of engagement as part of the RATP, which is promoting the draft final plan and letting people know that they are able to comment on it. And then we'll wrap up with next steps. So moving into where we are in the process here, we've wrapped up all the other tasks. So made it through vision, goals, and objectives, the regional connectivity analysis, our regional corridor identification and evaluation, our active transportation toolbox, and our air quality benefits. And so we're on the final step here, which is developing the RATP document itself. I'll go to the next slide here that shows our schedule. We cut it off a few months ago because it, as I mentioned, has been going on for quite a while, but showing the last little bit here. We're in mid-September right now with our final technical working group meeting. As I mentioned, we're also launching engagement right now, so we're anticipating that'll run for about 30 days, concluding in mid-October. In the meantime, we'll be doing our final rounds of edits on the draft document. So from you as the technical working group, we're going to bring it to a couple PAG committees, as well as the public comments we receive, and then we'll wrap up those addressing those comments in late October and wrap up the project. So as I mentioned, the one piece of information that's new in the draft RATP document is the cost estimation. So we previously brought you the project list, allowed you to comment on that. We also did a round of public involvement and made some changes to the project list as a result of that. And so to really make this a useful document for you all, we wanted to bring a planning level cost. So you can start working within your agencies and working within PAG's budgets to see where there might be opportunities to start implementing some of these projects. And so we are doing this at the regional scale. So we couldn't get down to the nitty gritty and do detailed cost estimates for each of the 100+ projects we have in our list. So we're relying on unit costs here. By and large, they should be, more or less close to this cost, but there's definitely additional factors that could go into the project design and, ultimately getting things like environmental clearances, things like that, we don't have factored in here. We really just wanted a high level order of magnitude planning level cost. So what we did is each of the project improvement types, we developed a unit cost for each one. So you can see here we have that broken up into on-street improvements, off-street improvements, so things like sidewalk shared use path and bridges. On the next slide here, we have specific crossing improvements. So things like enhanced crosswalks, that's just striping, raised crosswalks, refuge islands, PHVs, traffic circles. So these are the project kind of categories that we used in the ultimate recommended project list. And then developing that planning level cost, you can see at the bottom, a lot of the projects are made up of multiple of these improvements. So we took the unit cost times the improvement length or numbers of locations for each of those. So not every project includes every one of these costs. So we essentially just, based on unit costs and length or number of locations, depending on the type of improvement, and then added those all together to get our overall planning level cost. So relatively simple, but we really wanted to make it at least a little bit usable for you all as you're budgeting to get an understanding of the cost of some of these projects for programming purposes before we move into more detailed design. Any questions on the planning level costs before we hop into the document itself?
I've got one, Chris.
Sure.
Can you go back to the first page of the costs?
Absolutely.
So explain to me the first cost foot mile compared to the following two categories that are cost per mile.
Yeah, great question, Jonathan. So shoulder, depending on how wide the current shoulder is and what the recommended shoulder width is, that could vary quite a bit. So if we recommended 8-foot shoulders, we could have just done an 8-foot shoulder cost. But if there's already shoulder there, we may just be tacking on another couple feet. And so we essentially figured out what's the current shoulder, what's the shoulder we have recommended, and then apply that cost for each additional foot you're adding to that shoulder width. The other ones, constructing 5 feet of bike lane with an 8-foot planting strip, we figured that's a more standardized, we're gonna have to add that onto any road. Same with the buffered bike lane and cycle track. Those had more specified widths that we figured would be added on. And so we just did that as a kind of one set price for adding that, but totally open to recommendations and review on those costs. We want to make sure that they're in line with what you would expect.
Yeah, so I'm a little confused. So, I mean, if I'm reading it right, 70,000 for a 1 foot wide by 1 mile long shoulder.
Correct. Yep.
And a buffer, and if you, let's say we do a 6 foot wide shoulder, so that's $420,000 per mile. And yet a buffered bike lane, which is usually 6 feet wide plus another 2 to 3 foot buffer, is only 80,000 per mile. Those are completely different order of magnitude costs.
Yeah, and Kristen, feel free to step in if you recall. Was the buffered bike lane striping only? Like I'm trying to remember.
Yes, yeah, it's
Okay,
only striping.
okay.
We should maybe clarify that that's just paint.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think in the report we do, but yeah, we can definitely make that clearer if it's not coming through. But yeah, great catch, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Well, we will keep moving then. And I'll turn it over to Kristen to talk us through the active transportation plan document itself. Kristen, are you able to advance slides, or do you want me to push it forward?
I think I can. I can never remember how to do that though.
Should be at the bottom left of the screen.
I actually don't see it, so I might just have you advance them.
Sure.
Okay, so like Chris had mentioned earlier, we just want to kind of give you a quick tour to how the draft RATP is laid out so that as you guys start to do your review, you're kind of familiar with what content comes where in our document. So here's an overall view of what we have for our chapters in the draft document. And so we'll go into each of these in a little more detail, but we start off with our introduction. Then we move on to section 2, which is understanding our region. So kind of some additional context on regional needs. Section 3, identifying regional needs. Sorry, misspoke there for those two. And then section 4, building blocks of a high quality network. So that's going to look at our active transportation toolbox that we developed as part of this study. And then section 5, strengthening regional connections. So that's going to actually be the projects that we developed that you guys all recently reviewed and provided comments on and that we took to the public. And then chapter 6, our path to progress, so that implementation, but we'll go through each of these in the following slides. So for our introduction here, it's going to be pretty high level overview. So we'll start off with just a plan overview. What is the RATP? Why does it matter? And what will it be used for? And then we also provide an overview of the planning process, which you can see in the graphic below. So just kind of reviewing, how was the plan developed and also how does it translate in this document, kind of similar to what we're going over today with you. And then finally, it also summarizes those visions and guiding principles. So those, the vision and goals that we developed earlier in the study that we went over with you, I think in either technical working group meeting 1 or 2 now, so quite a while ago. So you'll be able to refresh yourself with those goals in the document. So that's what is in our first chapter. And then section 2, so understanding our region. This is where we're going to really look at the existing conditions of the PAG region, right? So if you guys can recall, we did develop that regional data set for the existing active transportation network for the region as part of our existing conditions. So that's all documented in there in a high level. We also summarize all of the previous planning efforts that we reviewed as part of those initial working papers and kind of summarize the key findings and takeaways from those. And then this also includes those technical analyses that fed into our corridor identification process that we went over with all of you. And so you'll see those kind of, instead of really being like, although we went through them with you during that corridor evaluation process, they're going to be in this existing conditions chapter, but everything that we considered while we did that corridor identification process is going to be present in the document. And then we also summarized our engagement results from round 1 of public engagement as well. And then our next chapter, so identifying our regional goals. This is where we really dive into looking at that corridor identification process. So we have an overview to the process to orient the reader, as we know that it is quite a detailed analysis and process that we completed to do that. We'll also go over the corridor priorities and the evaluation criteria. And then we walk through those network alternatives and the results from each one that then also lead to the preferred network and show that network as well. So kind of a big chapter that summarizes those months and months of work that we did with you all. And then, like I mentioned, our building blocks of a high quality network chapter is really just an overview of the active transportation toolbox. It's a very high level summary because the active transportation toolbox is actually appendix to the draft RATP document. So really this chapter aims to say, okay, we identified these corridors, these preferred corridors for our high priority network. But, where do we go from here? What's kind of guiding our next step, which is project development. And that is those context appropriate facilities based on the active transportation toolbox. So this section is trying to kind of lay the groundwork for that next project development phase. And then finally, so strengthening regional connections. This section has an overview of our recommendation development process. And so just a high level summary of how we developed our projects. And then also has the recommended projects by geographic area. So for each geographic area, we have a map, and then you can see actually that table below is for the far west. And so the descriptions, as you guys know, for our projects are pretty lengthy. So it's definitely hard to kind of include all of that in the actual document itself. So we've summarized the tables to show what projects have which elements when we're talking about facility improvements, and then it'll be included as an appendix that has the kind of really the spreadsheet and all of the information you guys were able to access on the web map will be an appendix to the document. And then because we took our projects to the public for public input and made some refinements based on those, we've also summarized our round 2 of public engagement in this section. And then finally, our last chapter here, so path to progress, our implementation chapter. We have an overview of the project implementation process, so you can kind of see a snippet of that there below. But we kind of go into each of the steps to implementation in a bit of detail. And then we also have summarized potential funding opportunities to make sure that we help, move these projects that we have in our plan actually through implementation and make sure that we've set everyone up for success when implementing. Any questions before we talk about feedback on the document layout? Okay, if not, like I said, I know that was a very, very quick run through of how it's structured, but hopefully that is a good starting point for you guys to kind of understand what you're looking at once you pop open that draft RATP document. But at this stage, we are looking for any comments you may have on the draft RATP. So if you could send any comments over to PAG staff by September 29th, that would be great. And it will help us to make sure that we can stay on schedule with getting this adopted. Yes, Jonathan?
Kristen, yeah, I noticed, is there a way that you could provide the project listings by jurisdiction? Because otherwise we kind of have to go in and it's pretty tedious to determine if a project is within our own jurisdiction or across another jurisdiction. And it'd be great if that information was already provided. Is that possible?
So we don't currently have that, but I think that that's something that we can put together pretty quickly. It won't be documented in the draft RATP, but I think that we can get you a version of our spreadsheet that has that information.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome. Thanks.
we can work on that. And yeah, if it would be helpful, Jonathan, like Krista mentioned, our Appendix B is a more detailed, essentially an export from the project list spreadsheet that has, all the details on the projects. If we think it would be helpful to add a column into that has like lead agency or whose, jurisdiction that roadway falls under, that's something we could add. It would be helpful going forward as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Great. Any other questions on the draft RATP document or providing feedback? Great. Well, if not, I will turn it back over to Chris to talk through our next round of public engagement.
Awesome. So, as I mentioned, we're going into our last round of public engagement here. It's going to operate really similar to our first 2 rounds, both virtual and in-person engagement. So we have an online platform. It's actually through a social pinpoint website where we have the draft document posted and allow people to leave comments in the website. We also have a web map of the project in there as well, where people, we're not really, the last round of engagement was allowing people to review the project list and give comments. So this is more just helping people understand where those recommended projects are. So those are both available through our social pinpoint website. So we're working with PAG to get that launched and get that out into out through social media, out through news outlets, out through you as member agencies. We're also going to be attending a series of in-person piggyback and pop-up events. We're still finalizing some of these in the list, but again, trying to spread it geographically around the region. So we have currently on the list of those we're trying to secure, I believe a couple are secured, is the Sahuarita Oktoberfest down at the far south end of town, the Jim Clicks Run and Roll, which I believe is at U of A, Marana Fall Festival, a pop-up at the El Pueblo Activity Center, and a pop-up at El Rio Town Center. Looking to launch that today, hoping to keep it open for about 30 days, so mid to late October. Depending on when we get the final kind of engagement launched here. But yeah, any questions? We're really just looking to get input on that draft RATP document and start to build momentum for implementing projects.
Hey, Chris, Jonathan again.
Yeah.
Sorry to hog.
You're
You're
good.
the only one here. Just on that appendix that has just the projects list that you're going to be adding the column for jurisdictions. I also noticed that the project ID numbers are not continuous and there's a lot of gaps, and I'm guessing that's just how it worked out when your process. But I would suggest, just to not raise questions, to maybe in a revised draft, just to have those numerically. I would suggest having them numerically 1 through 120, so that there's no question about whatever happened to the missing projects that aren't listed on that list.
Sure. Yeah. No, great
Okay.
suggestion. Appreciate that. Okay. Anything on engagement? Otherwise, we'll be a nice quick meeting here today. All right. Perfect. Well, last couple steps here, as I mentioned, launching our last round of public engagement. In mid to late October, we'll make all the updates from technical working group, from the PAG groups we're presenting to, and then from the public, and then really aiming to wrap up the project, deliver all the final files by the end of October. So another 45 days or so here, and we'll be done with this and can focus on the implementation stage. All right, and with that, I'll hand it back over to Hannah.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much, Chris. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, if there is nothing else from anyone in attendance, we can go ahead and move on to wrapping this meeting up. Yeah, so feel free to review the document, leave any comments in that social pinpoint platform. As soon as that's live, I'll send a link. Oh yeah, go ahead, Dean.
I thought I heard that the Kimley Horn team was going to talk about the feedback that they got from the public and what changes were made. I was curious to hear that, but I didn't actually hear that as part of the presentation.
Sure, yeah, it's included in the document in some detail. But yeah, Chris, do you want to provide some information on that?
Sure, I guess, Kristen, I don't know if you have any, sorry, Dion, we hadn't prepared anything for that, but Kristen, I know you went through the public results and made some changes to the project recommendations based on that. Any takeaways from that?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few locations, especially when looking in the urban core projects, that we had a lot of public comments that people were like, oh, you're using maybe this road as a bicycle boulevard to get from point A to point B, but we actually think that, this other roadway might be better for that. So there was a lot of instances where we changed the projects based on that feedback. Similarly with crossing locations, that was pretty consistent as well. But yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head exactly which locations we changed based on public feedback or the number that we changed. But I know that the public definitely had a lot of great recommendations that we did pull through into our updated projects.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks, Chris. Was there anything else anyone have questions on before we go ahead and wrap up? All right. So as I mentioned earlier, yeah, as soon as that social pinpoint link is live, I'll go ahead and send that out. So feel free as you're reviewing the document to leave feedback and comments through that platform, or you can just email anything directly to me. You don't have to wait to compile everything all at once. If anything comes up or if you have questions, definitely feel free to reach out, and we're happy to meet one-on-one, whether that's with the document or any of those comment responses that we sent out. Yeah, feel free to reach out, and we're happy to meet just as anything comes up. And with that, so we can go ahead and move on to agenda item 7, which is just our adjournment. I just want to thank everyone again for your participation throughout this process, for your feedback. It has really helped influence the plan to make it as useful and comprehensive as possible. So I want to thank everyone again for your time. And if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day and week.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.